The Mongolian steppes stretched endlessly before the Chinese encampment, a vast sea of golden grass under a sky unmarred by clouds. For days no rain had fallen, leaving the land parched and brittle, perfect for the fires that Zhao Fei intended to unleash. The air carried the sharp scent of smoke and the faint tang of sulfur as soldiers bustled about, their armor clanking and their voices low with anticipation. At the edge of the camp, near a cluster of tents, Zhao Fei sat cross-legged on the ground, surrounded by clay pots and pouches of black powder. Zhao Fei was the youngest of the three legendary warriors, his face still smooth where Cao Long and Ji Shao bore the scars of battle, but his youth belied a mind sharper than any blade, especially when it came to the art of black powder. He knew everything about it, how to grind the saltpeter, sulfur, and charcoal into a fine mix, how to ignite it with a spark, how to delay the blast with wax fuses, and even how to blend it with other elements to tint the flames red or green, or to amplify its destructive force. His father, an alchemist in the emperor's court, had taught him the basics, but Zhao Fei had taken those lessons further, perfecting recipes that had made him indispensable in the Chinese army. Now, his hands moved with precision, filling clay pots with the dark, gritty powder. He inserted waxed braids of animal hair into each one, twisting them carefully to ensure they would burn at the right pace. These were no mere fire starters. They were weapons designed to erupt in bursts of flame and sound, shattering enemy lines and setting the dry grasslands ablaze. Zhao Fei paused to wipe sweat from his brow. His dark eyes gleamed with confidence. This invasion of Mongolia, ordered by the emperor himself, would hinge on his craft. Nearby, a soldier approached, his curiosity overcoming his deference. "Zhao Fei, is that the black powder? The one that burns the sky?" Zhao Fei glanced up, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "It is. Want to see?" Soldier nodded eagerly, and Zhao Fei took a pinch of the powder, placing it on a flat stone. With a flick of his flint, sparks danced onto the mixture. A sharp crack split the air, followed by a burst of flame and a plume of smoke. The soldier flinched, then grinned. "Incredible! We'll burn the Mongolians out of their own land with that." "We will," Zhao Fei replied, returning to his work. "Fire is our ally, and I've made sure it obeys us." As he sealed the last pot, Cao Long's voice boomed across the camp. "Men, to me!" Leader of the three warriors stood atop a crate, his scarred face stern beneath his helmet. Soldiers gathered quickly, their cheers fading into attentive silence as Zhao Fei joined them, his clay pots cradled in a sling. Cao Long surveyed his men, his presence commanding respect. He was older than Zhao Fei by a decade, his armor dented from countless battles, but his voice carried the strength of a man unbroken by war. "The Emperor has given us a task, to claim Mongolia for China. The enemy thinks these plains are theirs, but tomorrow will prove them wrong. Zhao Fei's black powder will break their spirit, and your blades will finish the rest. Ready yourselves. We strike at dawn." Soldiers roared their approval, fists pounding against shields. Zhao Fei felt a surge of pride. His work was the linchpin of Cao Long's strategy. He adjusted the sling of pots, ensuring none would jostle loose, then turned to the map Cao Long had spread out on a table. The narrow pass Zhao Shao had scouted earlier was marked in charcoal, a choke point where the Mongolian army would be vulnerable. "Where's Ji Shao?" Zhao Fei asked, scanning the camp. "Still out there," Cao Long replied, his tone clipped. "He'll be back soon with their latest movements. We'll set the bombs tonight." Night fell swiftly, the sky darkening to a deep indigo. The camp quieted, save for the crackle of fires and the occasional whinny of a horse. Zhao Fei double-checked his fuses, his fingers tracing the waxed braids. He trusted his craft, but the stakes were high. Failure was not an option. A shadow slipped into the tent, and Ji Shao emerged from the darkness, his lean frame cloaked in dust. The scout's eyes were sharp, his movements silent as a predator's. Once a hunter on these very steps, he knew the land better than any map. "They're moving," Ji Shao said, his voice low. "The main force is camped north of the river, but they'll march through the pass at first light. If we place the bombs along the cliffs, the blasts will trigger a landslide. They won't know what hit them." Cao Long nodded. "Good. Zhao Fei, can you make it work?" "Absolutely," Zhao Fei said, already calculating. "I'll set the fuses long enough to burn while they're in the pass. The powder's strong. It'll bring the rocks down." "Then we move now," Cao Long ordered. "Take 5 men. We'll cover you." Under the cover of night, the small team crept toward the pass. Ji Shao led, his senses attuned to every rustle of grass. Zhao Fei carried the pots, his steps careful, while Cao Long brought up the rear, hands on his sword. The air was still, the dryness palpable. No rain had fallen in days, making the ground a tinderbox. They reached the pass, a narrow corridor flanked by steep cliffs. Xi Shao pointed out the spots. A ledge here, a crevice there. Xiao Fei worked quickly, burying the pots shallowly in the earth and threading the fuses into position. He tested one with a spark. It hissed reliably, curling toward the powder. "Done," he whispered, stepping back. Sao Long clasped his shoulder. "Back to the ridge. We'll watch from there." They retreated to a high vantage point, crouching behind rocks as the first hints of dawn stained the horizon. Xiao Fei's pulse quickened. Soon, the Mongolians would march into his trap, and the black powder would seal their fate. The sun breached the horizon, casting long shadows across the steppes. Horns blared in the distance, and the Mongolian army emerged, a disciplined mass of riders and foot soldiers, their banners snapping in the wind. Xiao Fei watched, his breath shallow, as they approached the pass. "They're almost there," Xi Shao murmured, his eyes narrowed. Sao Long gave the signal, and a soldier struck flint to the master fuse, a long braid connecting the others. It caught instantly, the flame racing along the ground, splitting toward each buried pot. Xiao Fei counted silently, envisioning the chain reaction, the fuses burning down, the powder igniting, the cliffs crumbling. The Mongolians entered the pass, their footsteps echoing off the stone walls. The fuses vanished into the earth, and Xiao Fei tensed, waiting for the familiar rumble of explosions. Silence. He blinked, his mind racing. They should have gone off. Sao Long's jaw tightened. "Are you sure you set them right?" "Yes," Xiao Fei snapped, his voice rising. "I checked every one. This has never happened." Xi Shao leaned forward, scanning the pass. "They're moving through. No disruption. Nothing." The Mongolian ranks marched on, untouched, their formation unbroken. Xiao Fei's stomach churned as disbelief turned to panic. He scrambled to the edge of the ridge, peering down. The fuses had burned out, wisps of smoke curled from the soil, but the pots remained dormant. No fire, no blast. It was as if the black powder had lost its soul. "We've lost our chance," Sao Long said, his tone grim. "Fall back to camp, now." Xiao Fei hesitated, staring at the pass, but Xi Shao grabbed his arm, pulling him along. The team retreated, their footsteps heavy with failure. Xiao Fei clutched a spare pot, his mind replaying every step. He'd measured perfectly, tested the mix. What had gone wrong? The encampment buzzed with tension. As they returned, soldiers glanced at them, sensing something amiss. Xiao Fei dropped to his knees beside a fire, spilling a handful of black powder onto a stone. He struck his flint, sending sparks into the pile. It fizzled, smoked, but refused to explode. Just a pathetic sputter in the morning light. "This can't be," he muttered, his hands trembling. "It's the same batch. It worked yesterday." Sao Long crouched beside him. "Bad ingredients?" "No," Xiao Fei said, shaking his head. "I tested everything. It's perfect. It should work." Xi Shao, standing watch, spoke softly. "The land's dry as bone. No rain, no dampness. Yet the powder's dead. Maybe it's not us. Maybe it's this place." Sao Long shot him a look. "You're saying spirits did this?" "I'm saying it's strange," Xi Shao replied. "Too strange for chance. We don't have time for guesses," Sao Long said, standing. "I'll report to the commanders. Stay here, Xiao Fei. Figure it out." Inside the command tent, Sao Long faced General Li and his officers. The air was thick with incense and weight of expectation. "The bombs failed," Sao Long said, bowing. "The black powder didn't ignite. The enemy passed unscathed." General Li's fist slammed the table. "Failed? Xiao Fei's weapons were our edge. What happened?" "I don't know, sir," Sao Long admitted. "He insists the mix was correct, but it wouldn't burn." General Wang, older and quieter, leaned forward. "No rain for days, yet the powder fails. Perhaps the heavens have turned against us," Li scoffed. "Superstition? We need answers, not omens." "Test it again," Wang suggested. "If it's true, we're in trouble." Back outside, Xiao Fei tried again, mixing a fresh batch from his reserves. Saltpeter, sulfur, charcoal. He measured with obsessive care, grinding them finer than ever. He sparked it. Smoke rose, but no flame, no blast. He tried a coarser mix, then one with extra sulfur. Nothing. "It's dead," he whispered, his confidence shattered. "The black powder's dead." Sao Long returned, his expression dark. "The commanders want a demonstration. They think you botched it." Xiao Fei followed him to the tent, carrying the pot. Before the generals, he ignited the fuse. It burned down, but the pot sat silent, mocking him. General Li's face reddened with fury, while Wang's grew thoughtful. "It's as if reality itself rejects us," Wang murmured. "We've overstepped." "We adjust," Li growled. "Fight without it. We can still win." But Xiao Fei knew better. Without the powder, their advantage was gone. The next days were brutal. The Mongolians, emboldened by their unscathed march, struck back with ferocity. Without the fires to disrupt them, their cavalry overwhelmed the Chinese lines. Zhao Fei watched from the rear, useless, as men fell and banners burned, ironic flames that mocked his failure. Cao Long led skirmishes, his sword flashing, but numbers and morale dwindled. Zhishao scouted tirelessly, seeking weaknesses, yet found none the Chinese hadn't already exploited. Battle after battle, the Chinese retreated, their dreams of conquest crumbling. Zhao Fei spent nights by the fire, testing the powder again and again. He tried every trick he knew, different ratios, new fuses, even praying to the ancestors. It smoked, it smoldered, but it would not explode. It was as if the very fabric of reality had shifted, denying China's dominion over this land. Word reached the emperor, and the order came: withdraw. The army limped back to the border, harried by Mongolian raids. Zhao Fei, Cao Long, and Shi Shao stood atop a hill, watching their forces retreat. The steppes stretched before them, untamed and defiant. "We lost because of me," Zhao Fei said, his face hollow. "No," Cao Long replied. "Something bigger stopped us. The powder was just the sign." Shi Shao nodded. "The land fought back. We didn't belong here." Months later, as the empire licked its wounds, a new decree emerged. The emperor, shaken by the defeat, turned from conquest to defense. Engineers were summoned, and construction began on a great wall, a barrier to shield China from the steppes it could not claim. Stone by stone it rose, a testament to a war lost not to men, but to a mystery none could explain. Zhao Fei, reassigned to the capital, kept a pouch of the silent powder. Late at night he'd stare at it, wondering, was it the heavens, the spirits, or the land itself that had turned against them? Cao Long and Zhishao too carried the question, but they spoke of it less as years passed. The Great Wall grew, a silent guardian, and in Mongolia the grasses waved untouched by Chinese fire, as if nothing had ever challenged their reign.